Welcome to the Voodoo Power Podcast.
Welcome to Plates and Pancakes. We're sitting down today with Jeff and Mikki Martin. The Martins are the owners of the Brand X Method. As a world leader in youth fitness, the Brand X Method offers a strength and conditioning program specifically designed for kids and adaptable to any environment. They strive to help protect kids and teens against sports injuries, boost their sports performance, and push back against the forces behind obesity. Since 2004, they have been driven by a relentless pursuit of best practices in youth training. A focus on motor pattern training and physical literacy enhancement optimizes kids' fitness and elevates their athleticism. So welcome to the show, coaches.
It's good to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Well, for anybody that doesn't know, we'll give this a second run. I managed to booger up the audio on the first one, so we'll get this one better. Now, going back through some of the notes I had from the first one and then trying to add in and take away, what I noticed was tier 0. You guys found out as you started your gym and you started bringing kids in that you weren't able to just hit the weights, that there was more that had to be done to create an environment for athleticism to grow.
Well, I think that, we started in, really working with strength training with kids in 2003. And the child in 2003 that walked in through our door, so it's quite a bit different than the child that's walking in 2013, 2014. And what you're talking about with tier 0 really came out with this idea that, look, we have to break apart movement now and teach kids how to do individual pieces of and parts of movements, not just teaching them the whole movement like we did, a decade before that. And that's where we started to have this idea of tiering the movements and then really moving further into this idea of there's 3 distinct phases kids work through: base, build, and boost, where base is teaching a child to control their own body and space, kinesthetic awareness, proprioception, where they are in relation to other things. And what we do is use that movement skills, which are the pieces and parts of movements, to cement the rules for movement for a kid. So we would use, like we want early in our training, we could tell a kid to pick up something off the ground and they would hinge perfectly, go down with a nice straight back and pick something up off the ground. That's just how the kids moved. And now we found that we have to actually teach them how to hinge. And that is, becomes problematic when what people want to jump into is, I want to teach them how to clean. Well, they don't know how to hinge, they don't know how to brace, and they don't know how to do any of those things yet. So,
And then the really little ones, starting with 5 years old, they've all got those noodly middles, right? They really have no idea how to brace their midline, their core, spinal stability, whatever you want to call it. Same deal. They need to know how to do that, but we can't really use those terms. So we had to come up with things that they can relate to at each stage to get a good stable midline, because we don't obviously want to load them before they can be stable.
So tier 0 really
it seemed so. Once we saw it happening, wow, these things we used to be able to assume they come in with, we can't assume anymore. We're going to have to go sort of negative from our list of tiers down to 0 because of where they're starting. And if starting points change again,
we'll do it again.
We're going to be going down. Because let's hope not.
But I think a good way for us to think about tier 0 in our movement hierarchy is tier 0 is the rules for movement. They're the rules for movement. And you teach the kids the rules for movement, and they move into the next phase, build, where they're using the rules for movement to expand their movement vocabulary. And finally, we come down to boost, where they can, because they understand the rules for movement and how to apply them, now we can work with complexity and movement that's complex and interesting for kids. And I think it not only helps them, this pathway not only helps them develop athletically, but if you're a gym owner, it helps retention too, because we don't just get kids who plateau or stagnate, or like if you're doing something creative like handstand walking. Well, handstand walking is not the end. and there's handstand walking and pausing, and handstand walking and doing 360s, and handstand walking and doing obstacle courses. But that comes with a mastery of the basics.
And some of those things can be done badly. The handstand walking is a great example,
yeah,
right? With the whole scorpion thing. But what does the scorpion transfer to?
nothing.
Nothing.
Handstand walking a distance.
But handstand, right. But if you can handstand beautifully and really maintain that stable midline and that, nice line top to bottom, that transfers to everything else. So it's sort of also an efficiency situation, right? We want them to become more efficient, and cleaning that movement up in all stages makes that.
And I think it also, it allows for choice. So not only does it allow for complexity, but it allows for choice. So if a child, let's say, who has learned the rules for movement, can do the movement in a strict fashion, so they're doing a handstand hold, and then they transfer that handstand hold to a great positional handstand walking, that child, if they're told in a competition that you're going to handstand walk for 100 meters, can choose to hang their legs over and go a distance because they can choose to break the rules because they understand the rules. A child who only learns, doesn't learn the control, doesn't learn the rules for movements, can only do it one way. They don't have the choice.
Yeah, if the next event is a spin 360 in that position, they're going to have trouble.
We did have a competition at one point with youngsters, and one of the skills we kind of did our functional fitness competitions differently than what is normally done, but we would have skills. So one of the skills was handstand walking, and we had boxes: kick up into a handstand and hold 5 seconds, walk to the next box, hold 5 seconds, walk to the next box, hold 5 seconds, and it was amazing how few of the kids could do that.
It was a big filter.
And then the next year, because the bar was set there, the next year when we ran it, 90% of the kids could do it. So it isn't a matter of those kids can't. It's a matter of holding the bar up and saying, this is what we expect. This is the high bar we want. Learn the rules, apply the rules, now do something complex. And let's keep pushing the complexity because that's interesting. And it's amazing how the kids thrived in that environment.
It's just basically not rushing to performance. It's understanding it's a long game and that the long game is going to just pay dividends for their entire lifetime as long as we just take the time to set it up the right way. And it's we get the word out, but we still see a lot of people just wanting to shortcut. I want them to do what I'm doing as fast as possible, right? Instead of, well, what's best for the kid?
Now, in saying all that, the more I kind of research some of your guys' ideas, what kind of stuck out to me is prepubescent is the time to get the movement library built. Once they kind of hit maturity, that ability to go back and gather that movement knowledge just isn't quite the same.
Well, neurologically, they go through those pruning stages. I'm guessing that's what you're referring to, right? So they have those 3 major stages where they'll prune out the stuff that doesn't get used. So if they're not exposed to it, it's not there. You can still teach it later, but you've missed an opportunity for continued growth on that thing that whole period of time if they'd had it in the beginning. The second layer there is because that neurology builds, it also builds for poor movement that's repeated. So, and all the systems in the body are supporting that. So it's not just the neurology, it's all the other stuff. So then we have to undo the bad learning, and the body has all this memory. So we don't want to start and have to undo it or have it a missing piece that's very hard to fill later.
And I think that it's important to keep in mind that, number one, you can increase movement vocabulary even into your,
really old like us.
Really old like us. Just the prime time to do it is prepubescent. But each developmental stage has its thing that it can
window of opportunity.
So yeah, that's right. The young kids can learn these crazy movements and really increase their physical literacy early on. And that slows down as you go into the teen years. But the teens, well, they're on natural steroids. So, they're getting this dump. So they've got this chance to become really strong if they've been taught to move really well, and then we start to apply it to a good strength program. So every stage. So looking at the stages of development, every stage has its opportunity and the opportunity that we should be focusing on. So when I hit the preteens and teens, I'm always looking at how can I make them move really well and how can I get them really strong. And Mikki's always looking at how can I present them really interesting movement problems, because she's working with younger kids. That kind of really interesting movement problems and games to get them excited about finding solutions to the movement problems.
And then repeating and repeating and repeating, but in various ways with different logistics, the same movement patterns, so that they just have that positional consistency down. Help it, that also strengthens them against injury in sport. So there's a whole bunch of extra benefits if we just take the time.
Now, every night, usually sometime in the evening, I'll sit down and I'll read Super Training. And I was reading it last night and getting ready, for this interview at the same time. And it's really amazing to me. The Russians, they started noticing this with their population, what you're talking about, but we didn't have that here. And you guys were on the forefront of that. So as exciting as it was, I'm sure, for the Russians to figure out, how exciting was it for you guys to be kind of leading the way on a lot of this stuff in America?
Exciting is it's exciting to find solutions. It was disappointing to see it happening. Heartbreaking, really. We'd see kids who thought and had been told maybe by their baseball coach that they're a star, and in some cases they were amazing athletes within that one venue, and they'd come and try and do a functional fitness class and be unable to. The common thing that we first saw was both initiate a jump and land with a jump with 2 feet simultaneously. And that was, when we first saw it, was like disturbing. What's going on with this one kid? Then we started to just see it a lot. And now I'm not so sure. I wouldn't say that it's more common than not.
I think one of the things that has been the most gratifying beyond our own gym and seeing our these kids come out of our gym as these just amazing athletes, and we have 20 years of experience now, so we have kids who started with us from their 10, they're in their 30s, and so we can tell you what they look like after or kids who were 5 and now they're 25, that kind of thing. And it's just exciting to watch them leave the gym, go to college, try out for sports, make this team, and all of those great things that we saw. But I think the thing that's most gratifying now is to watch it happening in other gyms. So they take the gyms that we're working with. You had on Coach Q a few while back. So not only did he do this in elementary school, he did it in the gym, and now he's doing this in the high school. And he's got this great strength and conditioning program and this great speed program, and so he's got these great results. But it really comes back to that idea of base, build, boost, and tiering movement. What's important? Are you moving well? Okay, now let's apply that to whatever sport activity or task you want to be involved with. And to watch that is what I think is the most
it's true
gratifying thing.
And across the world, we've
right.
got in other cultures that were behind the U.S. in seeing those movement problems or movement gaps in kids. Maybe they were more active for longer and maybe not so device centered as we were as quickly. And so their cultures didn't change as at the, in the same years that we did. And so we started to see that. And then we started to hear that other cultures overseas were starting to see it. So like you said, the Russians saw it at a different point. And I think every culture and microculture is seeing it differently. There are places in middle America where kids still get outside and play. And that's way less common in the bigger cities now. And it's And so it is not just
even in suburbs.
even regional, but like microcultures. Yeah, even in the suburbs. But unfortunately, it's spreading, and we start talking to more people, but having a solution that we can offer them to say, look, do this. We know it works. We tested it for 20 years, and we still test it now at the labs. We have this new idea. I think 2 new movement skills that we're working through to add, and it's caused, or they come up because of things we start seeing. So I doubt that's going to end, but finding solutions is definitely a wonderful thing, but being able to share them is the most important thing, because we want to affect the most amount of kids we can.
And I think that, it comes back to that idea of base build boost and, the tiering of the movements with the young kids that you see. You come in, you're getting to actually expand their physical literacy, teach them how to move well. And when every kid has to go through that same process. So if I get a 13 or 14-year-old in, what you're ending up doing is repairing something that they should have had back when they were, when they were playing outside and learning to, jump and drop out of trees and things like that. So, yes, you can repair it and then expand on what they can do. But having a method for going back and addressing these problems is really important, I think. And it's,
yeah, we know what to do.
Yeah.
It's not, oh, I can see that. Let's just do these things. And we have some complexes that we've put together, especially for the younger ones, because repetition is key, but then in a novel way, also key. So we've got these complexes, and we put together a movement skill complex. So you can practice that before class or during focus work. And then it reminds them, oh, these are the positions I'm supposed to be using.
I want to go back to something you said way early on in all of that. And you were talking about the jumps and how some kids can't jump off 2 legs. Some kids can't land on 2 legs. That movement pattern deficiency, it's something that I think that I've seen carry over in every movement they do. Is that something that you've seen, like a deficiency in the jump is going to be the same deficiency they have in the squat?
well, if a kid is a high level squatter, they're going to be able to apply force through both feet simultaneously. And so the movement skill would be like, we call it footprint in the sand for the young ones. We talk, that's just weight distribution across both feet. But, the short answer is absolutely yes. The longer answer is we have a pathway for teaching the squat, and the squat goes from teaching the movement skills, how to brace, how to hinge the hips, how to plant your feet and and have your weight evenly distributed across the foot, how to externally rotate your femurs, and then we use what we call our block squat, then a box squat, then an air squat. And you've got to do those things, got to work your way through that to where you can get to an goblet squat, and then front squat, and then back squat. So the process of going through that, what do we see most people do, though, is like, we're going to box jump and have you do back squats or front squats or something like that. Well, if they don't have the requisite pieces and parts of the movement and can put them together in the way that they should be, then there's going to be some problems. You'll see the box jump where they land all funky, or they take off all funky, or they jump down and you're going like, what's going on? It's not necessarily because they're not strong. It's just the movement, they don't understand, or their body does not understand how to utilize their strength in the proper way.
One of the things we see a lot of is just that foot collapse, and then the ankles, and then obviously knee problems follow. And we've seen kids who we were trying to work on that foot collapse and get them barefoot, get them working those muscles of the feet. But in the interim, watching them run, you can really see that. We had a lot of film of just accidentally of watching kids running, and it was clear who had those problems just by watching their
and interestingly, I have had a young lady who when she stood,
This is amazing.
This was amazing. When she stood, everything collapsed. Knees went valgus, feet collapsed like this. Did anything athletic because she had been doing what we were doing.
Just turned it on.
Everything turned on. So she ran in this beautiful movement. She squatted in this beautiful movement. She stepped away from the bar and go, Kunk. And we're like, stop it. What are you doing? And she just turned everything off. Well, I'm doing something athletic, so I need to do this. Now I'm just standing around watching TV. Do this. So you then have to go like, look, everyday life, we need to be in this position, not just when you jump and land and squat, but also, but that was really, it was
amazing.
It's funny to watch.
Now I'm going to deviate a little bit from the last time we talked and get into something we didn't get into the last time, but, do you find that the athletes you're dealing with now, it takes more to get them to try? Are they more in a shell, more introverted, where they don't want to put themselves out there and try maybe like they used to in the past because of whatever reason?
I have heard that from other coaches a few times. I didn't see a change in that myself working with young kids. Did you see that with the teens?
Not so much, and not even with the ones that I work with here now. I think a lot of it was a lot of that has to do with how we set up the environment for them to succeed to operate in.
Class culture.
So not just the class culture, but also what we require of the kids interacting with each other. So I always want my kids to be on the positive side of like, come on, let's all go. You're going to do your lift. And I was, a kind of a rebel from the CrossFit side. Is I really focused on strength part of strength and conditioning, and so my team class was really built around strength, and then we did some conditioning afterwards. But I built a culture where the kids walked up on the platform, all the other kids are going like, okay, great, let's going to do it. Awesome. High fives when you walked off the platform, even if it was just a simple set of 10. And what I think we're trying to accomplish is setting our expectations and the class's expectations. And I think if we set the expectations of like, look, everybody's going to try. Everybody's going to be doing their best. Then it's the odd time. It's I broke up with my girlfriend, or I had a bad day at school, where they come in and like, then you have the opportunity to go like, what's wrong, versus anything else. I think, and that's really, with the older kids, I think it was really a matter of that, trying to set that expectation, trying to show them that trying hard and led to success, and success breeds excitement about doing what you're doing.
Yeah, it's motivating. Kind of a little side jag here, but it's very relevant, so I'm going to try and make it short. The lack of play is directly related to young people's, this generation's hesitancy to engage with a new experience. And I'm writing an article right now for an organization about this very subject, and it actually applies to all ages, but very specifically to young kids who don't have an opportunity to explore and experiment without rules or timelines. So being able to go and figure things out for yourself, like my example is going and running through a field, coming across a stream. Never seen a stream before. How am I going to get across it? And having to figure it out, test and try and be creative and learn. And then know you can figure things out. You can figure new, novel things out without the stress of anything. So doing that creates adaptation and the ability to improvise. So let's go back now to kids aren't playing. What does that mean? It means now we have a whole generation, and there's all kinds of information coming out now. I even saw an article. I'll come back to that, but
a little window into Mikki's brain.
It's everywhere. So we're having this whole generation who is, when they come upon a novel situation, they freeze and it's a very hard thing because they haven't had the experience of doing all these explore and improv to know that they can deal with new situations. And it's related now that they're saying mental health, there's depression because of this. And then the recent article I saw, I think it was Forbes or Bloomberg, and they were talking about the tests that interviews are having people go through now. And they have a pre-test to see if you have the ability to improvise.
Crazy.
Because they're finding people coming in, so many of them don't, and bosses need that, right? You don't need somebody who just goes, I don't know, you didn't tell me exactly that, I don't know what to do.
Well, I think
right. So it's a huge deal.
In the professional youth coach course that we offer, we have a couple of sections. One of the section is on resiliency with kids. So how do you teach resiliency, and what, as a coach, how do you speak so that they understand, where the locus of control is, and
those are temporary, not permanent.
Right. Those kind of things help them be more resilient. And then we have another thing on developing trust with kids. Like, how do you develop trust with your class, with the kids? And I think when you're using resilient speech with them, when you are turning their failures or their unsuccesses into learning experiences, and when they trust you, they're way more open to trying and experimenting new things, and they're way more open to they don't see failure as failure, they see failure as a stepping stone. And I think those things are connected. Yeah. So one of the things I would say to coaches is, yes, our society has changed, and this is problematic that people aren't, kids aren't, quote unquote, trying as hard. They're afraid to try as hard in some senses. And so when we have the kind of speech, and we present the kind of class that they can experiment in and explore in, and we're supporting that, that's really, really helpful. Also,
not letting them film each other.
Yeah. I was kind of heading down that road. Yeah.
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 And
I mean, the social media aspect is daunting for them.
Yes, I was thinking that in my head. It's one thing if the class sees you fail, and maybe you didn't do very good, and however that presents itself, maybe in a few jokes or whatever. But if it's on video, then that escalates into a huge issue where now you don't ever want to try again.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things growing up.
Is it going to be the 40s this time?
Yes. Now I'm going back in the 40s where I grew up. But growing up on a ranch, when you're training a horse to pull, the first thing you do is you hook them up, and the horse will pull against the weight and just stop. And so then you have to train them to bear against the traces and pull the load. There's the same counter with young kids learning. You watch a kid walk up to a kettlebell who's 7 years old, and they'll pull against it and they go like, I'm done, I can't do it. And you have to train that adaptation for them to go like, oh no, it's not too heavy, I just strain against this and I will slowly lift this weight up. That same kind of training is necessary for kids in effort. We need, you have to train them that this effort produces the results. You don't just kind of go, and then or just don't kind of do a half effort, because that's just pulling against traces going like, well, that's heavy, I need to stop. No, we got to train that effort. And as coaches, that's our job, is to train, not just that they can physically strain against the weight and pull that, grind that weight out, but that the effort that we have to train that effort in, that every day they come in, they try a little harder, and they set their goals, and we work toward those goals. So I think that's really an important part of our job as coaches.
And that peer group environment
Yes.
helps that a great deal. You see other people doing it. You have a mentor. You have a goal. Hey, that guy is the one I want to beat him, or I want to be like, right? It helps.
Now, Jeff, you were speaking my language there a little bit, growing up on a ranch and the horses and all that. And I'm a huge Ray Hunt fan. And Ray Hunt used to talk about when he was growing up, his dad's horses were winners. He never let them feel like they had lost. Even though the job may not have got completed like he wanted, the horses were winners. So I would imagine that you want the same thing out of your kids. You may not get the absolute result you want, but you have to make them feel like winners. So how do you kind of set that up where they leave gaining confidence?
Well, I think I'll talk about the older kids and let you talk about the younger kids, and I'll talk about horses. But if the horse didn't win, whose fault was it? It was the rider, right? So when we talk about base, build, boost, I'm working with, we have 3 platforms. We have rookies, JV, and varsity, and they fall in that. We're teaching kids how to move. We're testing them in the middle, and then boost, as kids are performing, we're just adding weight. And what am I doing down in boost? Am I coaching them to move better? No, they know how to move well because we've gone through this process. So all I'm doing is mentoring and guiding them, telling them what weight they need to lift, how many reps they should be getting, what the RPE is. And if they don't make it, whose fault is it? Well, it was mine. I picked, so I'm going to just take that on. I mean, like, that's just my fault. I told you to lift this weight. I told you it should be an RPE 8. It's clearly an RPE 10 or 11. and it's my fault. If you're over time, obviously, when like you put the time in, you pretty well know how to help, what weight the kids should do, and you've been working with the kids, so you choose less, you have less and less of those failures. But I think you instantly walk up and say, it wasn't your failure, it was mine. I picked the wrong weight to challenge you with, or I picked the wrong task to challenge you with.
For the young ones, we focus on what they did best today. We're not focusing on weights or speed or the clock, or you go right on the board what you feel like you did best today. So some days they'll write squats, some days they'll write leader because they led something. Some days they'll write I listen to the rules, right? It could be really a whole realm of things, but what we try and do is just focus on what were you successful at. And it never turned out that they would write one thing always. They would see that they were getting success in more than one area. And that was, I think, motivating, and then showing them what their successes were, and then success is motivating to more success. So for the littles, it's pretty simple. We sometimes use tactile things to show them they're successful. One is with box squatting. To teach them engagement, we call that muscles on. So we'd have them do muscles on to a very low box with their calves stuck on the box. So they've got to engage to drop down, or they would flop, right? But to get them to want to do that, what could we do? So we took chalk and put chalk dots on the box and said, when you walk away from the box, that those dots have to be on your socks. So they'd try so hard to stick and engage because they wanted the chalk dots. So it was simple little playful motivators, but also a measure of their own success.
Now you guys talking about base, build, boost, and then we just got to talking about horses. It dawned on me a long time ago that like the old vaqueros, the old California cowboys, they always called them Colts manana horses because he wasn't going to be ready. Every day was a new day, and it took the time to build that. Understanding that this is a process. Like Jeff, you love powerlifting, but you can't do anything with powerlifting if they don't come through the process correctly. So keeping everything in order in your mind. How are you guys able to do that so well?
He might not think that I keep everything in order in my mind.
We just had a demonstration
I'm
of
a
that
little distractible.
just a minute ago.
Just practice and really the love of it. We want to make sure we're doing it right. And so it's, and then visually you can see if you're doing it right. It's always in front of you. And that's like Jeff said, it's the rider. Something goes wrong, it's you. So if they're not getting it, I didn't teach it well enough.
So we aligned our in the team class, we aligned base, build, boost with our platforms. So we had a rookie platform, their base. They're learning how to move. In build, we're testing whether they can take the rules of movement, and we apply some load to them, some more volume and things. Do they still move well? And then finally we have performance, which is down in boost. But when you ask about how do we kind of walk them through those things, well, we have a checklist. Like we're gonna deadlift today. Do you know how to hinge? Well, you're a rookie. Do you know how to hinge? Everybody start and everybody start on the rookie platform. So, and I didn't say to hey, 16-year-old lineman for the football team that came in today, you go to the rookie platform. I didn't say that. I said, look, this is the platform. This is where everybody starts. Then we go here, and then we go here. In my head, and then the coaches were going rookies, JV, varsity. But everybody started on the rookies. And so somebody who might come in, who's 16 years old, 200 pounds, lineman on the football team, and start on that platform, and he might know how to brace, and he might know how to hinge, and he might know how to squat really well. A couple weeks here, boom, you're over here. We understand that you understand the basics, and you can apply them to the movement. Kids don't have to move perfectly in the rookie platform. They've got to understand the movements, and they got to be able to be coached, because what we're doing in rookies is teaching what we're expecting. In base or the JV platform, we're coaching. Keep your knees where they need to be. Remember to brace. Remember to hold your breath. In boost, we're just mentoring and guiding. This is how many reps you should be getting with the weight you're using.
You're also discussing it with them,
right? Well, that's down there. I have a whole different relationship with kids in the boost and on the varsity platform than I do with kids in the rookies and JV. So there's a whole section down there. Like, you've done this. You take a kid in. They come in. They're brand new, and you show them what you want out of a squat, and they start their squat, and there's 3 things that are wrong with the squat, and you stand back up, and then they do the second squat, and you're going, there's 3 different things that are wrong with the squat, and then the next thing you're going, there's 3 more things.
Let's do push-ups.
But that person's in the rookie section. No matter what age they are, they're in the rookie section, and until they can kind of standardize their mistakes and understand what they're doing, we can't move them forward. So we have a stepwise process. Here's the movement skills. Can they replicate the movement skills, and can they do the movement skills perfectly? Can they start to apply those movement skills to movement? Okay, now we can move them to the next phase.
Yes, it's a process, and it's always starting over. About the time you get kids really strong and just right where you want them, they leave and the new group comes in.
Right. Yeah, and one of the things that I think that was interesting about our gym was we really focused on bringing kids in who had been disenfranchised from sport. They were they didn't grow, so now they didn't keep up with their peers in the growth. So they didn't make the travel ball team, or they just were never found a sport that they loved. And we brought those kids in, walked them through the process, and then we gave them a sport. We're powerlifters, we're Olympic lifters, we're functional fitness athletes, and we can do all 3 of those things. And all of a sudden, you have Brand X Barbell Club, and setting records in powerlifting, and having our kids go up the powerlifting meet, and every announcer is going like, "Y'all should be lifting like him. These kids, not like the way you're doing it." And we kind of circumvented some of the problems we see with the kids leaving, because you're working with athletes. They come in their off season, and then they leave, and they go back to the season, and they come back the next year, and you're like, I got to start all over again here because they've forgotten everything. And but we could have this core of kids. 85-90% of our kids were kids who saw
year-round
our
consistent.
gym and the sport we gave them, powerlifting, Olympic lifting, and functional fitness, obstacle course racing, those things, that was their sport. And they got good at their sport at our gym. And then we pepper that in with the athletes.
Now, this is going to be a strange question, but as we were getting off the last podcast, this one kind of dawned on me, and we may have even talked about it off air, but not everybody is kind of called to take on what you've taken on. So when you started the gym and you started getting there, did you realize how in-depth this calling was going to get for you guys?
No.
And I don't think that people asked us to do it knew what kind of people we were either.
No, I don't think they realized that what we would apply to the task. Yeah, we talk sometimes about what would be an easy career. What would be really simple? Because, man, we didn't pick a simple one, did we? But no, it doesn't matter, because actually finding out all these things and continuing to learn what kids need is really motivating. Like, again, we want to share that. We want to see more kids benefit from our experience. And because we are the way we are, we really looked at a lot of detail. And so, yeah, it's not simplistic, is it? But it's what they need. And I have always sort of had in my mind, when people say, well, I want to do this instead, why wouldn't you optimize what you give children in anything? Like, why would you go, I could get away with this. Like, I'm not going to use seatbelts today. I don't have to. I can get away with it. Right? I don't get it. I don't get not trying to optimize it.
And it is a process. And it's a process of, first of all, I think it's who we are. We are nerds about this, and we know very little about anything else. We don't have time for anything else, so we focus here. But I think also it's a constant reevaluating. You can't say your program's done. It's a constant reevaluating of what needs to happen. What are we seeing in society and what's going on? Our three boys talk about Brand X version 1, Brand X version 2, and Brand X version 3. It was great. The first version, our oldest Connor says, Brand X version 1 was great. Connor tried to set the Guinness Book of World Records pull-ups with 2 months of training and having surgery in the middle of the training. And I think he got 4,000, almost 4,500, something like that, pull-ups done in 15 hours, and then came to a complete dead stop. He's a great athlete, mixed martial artist.
He recently did a half marathon just because he wanted to try it.
Our middle boy, Keegan, is a firefighter paramedic. He's working on his 700-pound deadlift and 700-pound squat. He just bought into the powerlifting. Our youngest was unconcerned about sports until he got to high school. Came to the gym, did what we did. He's version 3. Got into high school, decided, I want to play rugby, because if you're the smallest kid in school, you should pick the sport where people fall on, big people fall on. He ended up, I think, being a starting wingman 2 months in, and was starting wingman for the rest of his career there. Senior year, decided he wanted to go out for track. He'd never done that before. Decided, I want to pole vault, and ended up in the San Diego County finals in pole vault his first year. And then went to San Diego State and decided, I want to try out for cheerleading, and was team captain there his sophomore, junior, and senior year. Those are disparate sports, and now he's a rock climber. And all of that kind of, our youngest represents the latest of what we're trying to accomplish. Look, you should be able to do anything. You should be able to walk into any sport. You should be able to take the rules for movement, then apply that to the rules of the sport and be good at the sport. That's what you should be able to do. But we're not done. There's going to be a version 4, and our 3 boys are going to go like, but now who got version 4? Why didn't we get our grandkids get version 4?
And you said a few different things in there I want to hit on, but the version thing, I talk about that all the time with some of the boys. Like, it's generational. I consider it generational. We had first gen, second gen, third gen, and it's amazing to look at where we are now back to first gen and how much things have changed. But in saying that, you mentioned being nerds in there, and I think this is hilarious, is I interview all these coaches, great coaches, just they were superior athletes, a lot of them, in what they did. They're creating superior athletes. But at the heart of it all, they all have one thing in common, and that's they're all nerds. They love math and science, and you couldn't have convinced them that in high school, but now they do.
That's funny. It's truth. We used to say that science informs what we do, but we confirm what science says. Like there's times where people come to us and go like, look, science says this, and you're like, yeah, but I'm looking at what happens when we apply that, and it doesn't happen. So I think we read the research on youth fitness all of the time.
I get so many Google alerts,
and that's that's one of the reasons why we have the labs. Is we can come in and go like, look, let's try this. Let's see if we can will this work? And it's what we did in our own gym.
And everybody has to be some sort of a scientist in their own gym, or you're never going to progress. And so embracing that idea and making it yours, allowing yourself to fail a little, but seeing the improvements part of the process.
Oh yeah, we made mistakes. We allowed that part. And it's a good thing though, because then we can save other people time and say, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, but here's how that plays out. So part of it is part of it. And you don't learn anything if you don't make any mistakes. So
you want to model that you fail forward too. Exactly. Just the kids. I always loved the idea that my boys would come work out with me because they got to see me fail. Like it was like, Dad failed, and off we go and we do something. So it's.
They didn't see it quit.
They never saw me quit.
That's, I think, so important. Is it took me a long time to feel confident stepping out and doing some of the things I do now with the gym and the podcast, and tried writing some articles and stuff like that. But I think it's really important to show the athletes in your gym that you're willing to step out there, and it's not always pleasant, the things that happen, but if they can see that, then at least they know, hey, you survived it, I can too.
Can I tell you it's my funny story toward the end of when we had our gym. We used to do challenges with where the coaches would challenge the class. Like, we'll do this. So one of the challenges, we got 3 coaches. I was one. And we were going to do, it was 5 minutes of rope climbs. So the kids could cycle through the rope climbs, and the coaches were going to go up and down, and whoever got the most rope climbs would win. And
how many kids were?
I don't know. There was 10 or 12 kids, maybe 15 kids in the class. So it was stacked, but I have only a couple things I'm really good at. Rope climbs was one of them. I mean, I could just go up and down the rope. And so we were neck and neck with the kids. And my last time I remember going up the rope, and I got all the way to the top, touched the mark, and then everything locked up. And the only way down was to let go. And so I plummeted this streak, just plummeted to the ground, boom, and collapsed down there. And the kids won. And it was double humiliation. One that I just fell off the rope and was seized up in some kind of horrible contortion. Every muscle in my body had frozen, and they beat us. So
I have too many embarrassing stories.
we don't have
time.
I had one similar to that. Me and one of my first generation kids, we were box jumping, and I just wasn't paying attention. And we had the old wood boxes that I'd built, and we were kind of talking back and forth and wasn't paying attention. It was only a 30-inch box. It wasn't like we were really jumping. man, I caught my shin on that box, and I left more hide on the box than what was on the front of my shin. And I'll tell you what, it didn't take me long to buy soft boxes after that, but that was quite the failure. I'm glad that one wasn't on video.
I have quite a few that were on video. Mikki doesn't get involved in my workouts very often, but right before our oldest boy got married, she asked me, she said, don't do anything stupid at the gym. So I figured,
This is the day before.
a box jump workout with 30-inch box jumps, and I don't know, some other body weight, something was going to be just fine. Jumped up, broke my leg on the box. Only time I ever missed a box jump. That was it. And
He treated it by voodoo banding it. There was a
yeah, exactly.
there was
That's a good idea, right?
baseball size knot on it. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. It was a whole baseball knot, and he's always voodoo
Had to get through the wedding.
He did.
Priorities, right?
That, when your wife says don't do something stupid, and you prove her
I think I set it up.
entirely right, that you gotta suck it up and move on.
I'll tell you another thing I learned about box jumping while we're down this road is at my age, I had worked up and I was hitting pretty good sized boxes, and I was doing a powerlifting meet prep, and I took the box jumps out. And it's amazing how long it took with the age and everything else, how long it took to build that back up again. And I decided then that I would never take the jumps out again because it was too hard to get back up there.
And I was going to ask you why you chose to take them out.
I was getting down to the end of my prep, and I was just kind of trying to,
Okay.
It was a dumb idea, and I was just trying to reduce volume and just keep everything a little more focused on what I was doing powerlifting. I think the prep had started grinding me down a little bit. And then, so I'm just like, okay, well, I'm just going to take these out and see what happens. And that was a very hard lesson learned. I'll never do that again.
Both of us had a knee surgery in 2021 for different reasons, but right about the same time, like one after the other. And getting box jumps back after that was not fun. And it took a long time. So I hear you on that. It definitely is what do they call that? A skill that disappears if you're not doing it.
It's a perishable skill.
Perishable. That's it.
I like using, and we did quite often use really high box jumps in conjunction with deadlifts in meet prep. So kids would, our middle boy, the one who fell in love with powerlifting, we would have them do their sets of thing and then step off and maybe do something limited, like 3 40-inch box jumps. So you step off the platform right into your 40-inch box jump, and then rest and man, it was really productive for them.
Looking back on it, that it would have been. It was just something I tried. I was kind of worn down. It was just me at the time in the gym, and I'm like, do I really need these? That was a very hard lesson learned. Yes, you really do need those.
Well, we found that it was optimal for our kids to do that kind of thing. Honestly, because we had a high jumper come into the gym, and he was jumping 6'6". He was a pretty good high jumper, but he was weak, and so we put him on deadlifts and squats because that's our standard diet. But we wanted him also to continue to be explosive because he needs to be explosive. So we would have him do these high box jumps. And then next year he stepped out and he jumped 7 feet in one state meet. I think he put 10 pounds on him, and his coach called and yelled at me about, put 10 pounds on my jumper. And I went, I know, but you can trust me, he's going to jump higher. And he did.
You were testing, and always the do no harm. We didn't want to take away from them. We just wanted to help them. And the coach didn't see that coming.
So he jumped, 6 inches higher the next year. Of course, we put 200 pounds on his deadlift and squat, but but that I attributed some of that to that stepping off the platform and jumping those high jumps, and we just kept them in our standard programming. So broad jumping, step off the platform, do 3 broad jumps or triple broad jump or something like that.
we were the beneficiaries of people coming in with equipment all the time. We had somebody bring us old gymnastic equipment. So we had a couple massive hurdles.
Vaults, yeah.
Vaults. Yeah, that's what I meant to say, vaults. And so we had, as part of warm-ups for the teens, they would go through this cycle. And we used to do it at seminars when we'd have adults come, or for kids seminars. And we'd have the adults go through after the teens, which was really fun to watch because a lot of them had never gone over a hurdle. But the kids had not just jumping to boxes, but all types of really high jumps. Some of them could jump that laterally, just over the vault. It was pretty amazing.
It was pretty fun. I think we've got something on our Instagram where one of the kids is sitting on a box in front of the vault, and he sits back and he stands up and jumps, and you think he's going to jump on the vault, but he just jumps all the way over the vault.
Yeah. From seated, goes over it laterally.
Now, I do keep up with your guys' Instagram and some of the things you post, and it looks to me, outside looking in, that you do a great job of setting up games that allow these movements to be used, but the kids don't necessarily understand that the movements are being used. So what goes into that?
Oh, what goes into that? Into what exactly? Into creating a game?
Yes. Yeah.
So I have several different things I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make sure functional movement's in there, but kind of everybody does that, right? Functional movement's in there. What I want to add to that is physical literacy. So physical literacy being carrying, throwing, kicking, mirroring, grappling, all kinds of things that they might not be exposed to unless we particularly make sure we expose them to them. And then I want to make sure that I'm adding, that I'm practicing the movement skills. And then I want to add layers of play or free play as much as possible. And that meaning, what I mean by that is opportunities to explore and experiment, like we talked about earlier, without many rules. And then I want to challenge them with movement solutions so that they can come up with their own, how am I going to do that? So, for example, bear crawl, box wall, that was a fun one. And that worked out that we could actually bring that up to teens in a whole different level and really give them a tough workout. But for the little ones,
describe it.
Bear crawl, box wall is taking, and this is the old wooden boxes, but the soft-sided boxes would work as well, just side by side and making a line across the middle of an area, a pretty big area. You want to have one box per child. And you're going to ask each child to somehow ambulate. We usually used bear crawls to get to the box. And then we'd say anyway over. And we'd line them up so that there's one child per box. So they're kind of shoulder to shoulder. And upon go, 3, 2, 1, go, bear crawl, get over the box, go to the other side, stop. Then turn around, do it again. You can do that in so many different ways. Every minute on the minute, last man standing.
Tabata.
Yeah.
We did it all kinds of different ways.
And then with the little kids, what we do is then when we were done, we'd say, did you see other people get over in a different way that you did? And then we discuss the different movement solutions that they all came up with so they could, for themselves, observe that person was the most efficient. So I can see that if I need to get over something, that's the best way to do it. And so we'd repeat it in conversation and language about movement, which is another physical literacy skill to understand how to translate movement to language.
And what was fun, in the teen class, we would set it up with like every minute on the minute. So the first minute or last man standing. So first minute you do a burpee and then you bear crawl to the wall, get over it. Next minute you do it twice. Next minute you do it 3 times. Next minute you do 4. And what was fun was to watch kids who had come through our process, base, build, boost, maybe started in Mikki's class at 5 years old and now they're 15, and versus a kid who started when he was 13 and now is 15. And what you'd watch is these kids who'd been through this whole process would bear crawl and seamlessly move from that bear crawling to transitioning to going over the box and back to a bear crawl, versus the kid who would have to stand up, put their foot on the box, and then and get over the box or jump over the box. And you just see this seamlessness of the movement of kids, movement fluency of kids who have had exposure and the ability to experiment and find what worked for them.
And then put it together, what I call smooth transitions, right? So they're just, you can just see they just move to the next thing, like a martial artist that really knows what they're doing. It's just fluid. Right?
When you have the kids who have the movement experience and the complexity of movements that can come, you can do different things in a warm up. We would do things like, for the kids who had been around, handstand walk 5 meters, pause, roll out, go into a bear crawl, go to the bear crawl to the door, seamlessly move from the bear crawl to a run to the end of the building, and all of that. It is sounds like, well, why are you doing that? Well, that's the kid that gets knocked head over a tea kettle on a football play and just simply gets back up and runs.
And knows how to dodge something without going down.
Right. So
it's just
all of those things.
Well.
The games were always fun, and you did a really good job of piecing all of those things together. With the teens, it became more about challenging. Can we challenge you? How many different ways can you get up a rope? How many? What's the broad jump? What can we do off of a broad jump? I have a great video that's going to go up in the next week or so of a young lady doing really galloping, just swings her leg back and then is leaping one leg at a time and into a broad jump. And it's I don't know, she's like 12 or 13 years old, so she's thin and skinny and growing coltish, but she just has this beautiful movement as she does this crazy thing. But challenging them to can you put movement together and do it seamlessly, like you said, move from one thing to the next.
Now there again, there's a few things you talked about in there, but one, as you was going through how you set that up, it brought to mind, I watch a lot of sporting events. I try to go watch all my athletes compete. You get to see everybody competing. Wrestlers really seem to be fluid in what they do. They spend so much time in them weird positions and crawling across the mat and all the different things they do. Their physical literacy seems to be higher than the other sports I watch. And I think mostly because it's set up a lot like you say it is. It's a lot of things they have to figure out. And a lot of it's on their knees or on their fours, and then get up and then get back down. And then, yes, I can see where you were building some kids that could really move well. The other thing you talked about in there, you were talking about the girl that was kind of galloping and doing all that. I watched on Instagram, and I thought it was ridiculous when I first saw it, but they do the stick pony shows.
Yeah, that's not what we're doing. But yes, I saw it. You've seen that.
No, and I get that. I get that's not what you're doing, but they started adding like hunter hack in there where they're jumping their stick ponies, and it is incredible how high some of those kids are jumping over some of that stuff. It changed my mind on it a little bit.
Yeah, that's some real athletic movement then.
Yes,
do that and control that object, right? That's interesting.
There's a point, and I think nowadays is we have to kind of step back from what we would judge this and go like, look, if we got a group of kids and they're out doing that and that's what they are wanting to do, then
they're moving
and
they're finding joy in movement.
Yeah, they're finding joy in movement, and they're been great. Good on them.
Yeah, it's kind of like the first two things, right?
When I saw she was a younger girl, when I saw her hitting some of those jumps, I'm like, that's some athleticism. I mean, because she's kind of like galloping and she's got the stick horse between her legs, and man, she's clearing stuff that I'm like, holy cow, that girl can really move well. Whatever it takes to get them moving, right?
Right. Yep. Exactly.
Well, I'm glad we were able to sit down and do this again. I'm sorry the last one didn't. sorry the last one didn't turn out, but I think this one was really good as well. So I appreciate your guys' time and everything you've been doing, working through, like you mentioned earlier, with Coach Q and getting this set up. It's been a really good experience.
We've enjoyed talking to you and following along with what you're doing on your gym too. So thank you for having us on.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. That was awesome.
Well, I appreciate it. Like I said, the first time didn't work out. And a lot of times people just say, well, it just, I don't have time or whatever, but you guys made time to do it again. And that means a lot to me.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. We enjoyed it.
Yep.
All right. Well, you guys have a wonderful evening.
You too.
You too.